Hello, hello. How are you doing this wonderful Thursday? It is a different Thursday for me. My kids are home this week, so that's a very interesting time when they are home. They have a February break that was kind of left over from when they had extra breaks for the pandemic, and this one was just part of that. So today we're going to talk about making decisions and liking the decisions you make. So let's kind of talk about, in terms of decisions, the good thing is that you're responsible for your decisions, right? The decisions you make your life. And it's really cool to understand that that means that you are in control, get to choose how you make your life. Any decision you make allows you to move towards what you want. And a lot of times we are very worried about right or wrong decisions. When in actuality, you make a decision and then you figure out, is that decision the right one for me? Because oftentimes, even though we have all the information we can get, it's not enough to tell us whether or not it's what's going to work for us, especially when we're, talking about our health decisions. Do we want to do a certain exercise, go to a certain gym, do a certain workout, drink a certain amount of water, eat certain foods? All those decisions that we make, then we get to make those decisions and kind of experiment and see, how is that working for me? And if it's not working for me, how can I change it, tweak it a little bit, or do I need to choose something else? So we get to make those decisions. So kind of some of the things that cause us to have indecision, I had a poll in the group, right? And like the top two were that we're scared of making mistakes, right? So that was the biggest one, that's scared of making a mistake, which I just said, you don't have to worry about making a mistake. You just need to make the best choice at the time and then choose to like that decision and move forward with it until you get the feedback that indicates whether it's the right decision for you. And once you've decided with that feedback, then you can choose something else. The important thing with a decision you make is to go at it 100%, to make the decision, and actually, especially with your health stuff, is to really go into making that change to see if it's right for you. Because if you just kind of, do it a little bit, you're not going to get the full impact to understand if it's the right decision for you. The next one that people said were, a problem for indecision is too many choices, right? So if you have too many options, then yeah, it's gonna be something where you're like, I don't even know. I could do this, or this. So when you're thinking about when you have too many choices, a lot of times you can narrow it down to the two best choices just by, either thinking about it or having a pros cons list, having a gut feeling about which one would not be good for you at all, or was not the right time for you to do it all, right? So consider that when you're looking at your health choices. If you have too many choices, it's like, it's not which one is necessarily right versus which one is the best one for you at that time, because things change during your seasons of life as well. And you may be able to go after something and, have more ownership of it during a different season than another season. So other ones that kind of other things that often cause us indecision would be like, if it's the end of the day, it's harder to make decisions sometimes. So, consider making decisions in the morning or when you're well rested. If it impacts others, right? A lot of times it can be harder to make decisions about yourself when it's impacting your family members, such as changing the way you're eating something. If you're choosing to then take something out of your diet, and then because you make the food, then it impacts everyone else in the house. Sometimes that can be something that causes you indecision, versus, you can go and you can ask, if I take this out, is that a problem for anyone? Or where can I have this in food for you guys, but not in food for me? A lot of people have to do this when they have intolerances of some kind. And sometimes the entire family does it and sometimes not. So it's always a choice and always a discussion for something like that when it impacts others. Another thing is if it's something that's emotional or triggering. So if, say, you had chosen at some point to remove something from your food, or someone else chose that for you, and then you think maybe you would like to remove it again, say maybe someone, when you were a kid, never allowed you to have candy. And then, now you're like, oh, I should remove candy. Well, that can be something that could be emotional or triggering to you. So when something's emotional or triggering, you want to make sure that you're grounding yourself in before you make that kind of decision, and also decide, do I need to work on this in some other way, emotionally, so that it can be a decision I make that's not triggering. Because a lot of times when it's triggering or a very emotional decision, then you'll actually go the opposite way of what you're trying to do, or you'll go and buffer in a different way. So just something to think about if it's something that is emotional or triggering. So what other work do you need to do within yourself to allow yourself to take a step like that or make a decision like that? So ways to make a decision, right? So things that you can think about when you have a decision. Again, oftentimes it's better if you can narrow it down to maybe 3 choices, right? So then it's not something where you're looking at multiple information from multiple areas for the decision. But, like I said, you can do a pros and cons list. What's going to be the benefit of doing it? What's going to be the negative of doing it, right? Is there a risk in doing it or a reward for doing it? And then if you don't like any of the possibilities, right, then you can always consider what are other possibilities, right? You want to be open, like I said, to all the possibilities, and then narrow it down. So if you're in a point where you're like, okay, none of these possibilities work for me, consider, is there something where you'd like to kind of step outside of the box and think of something else that would be a beneficial way for whatever decision you're trying to make. You also want to look at your goals and your values. Is this decision you're making going to meet with your goals and values, or is it something that pulls you away from who you truly are? So consider that. And also make sure you give yourself time to make a decision. If you have a decision to make sure that you kind of think about it, decide your possibilities, and decide to make a decision, but you don't have to do it all in an instant. You can actually take some time to make that decision. The other side of that is to set a deadline on the decision, especially if it's one that you're not making or you're struggling to make. Then you can say, okay, by this date, I will have made a decision on these 2 possibilities, or I will have found a third option, right? Whatever that is that on your decision is, try to set a deadline if it's something that you're struggling with making a decision on. And then something I talk about a lot is consider your gut, right? So which way are you leaning towards? What is your intuition telling you? It's like, is there a certain one that is a kind of like a definite no? Or is there a certain one that, yeah, that's probably the one I want to do? Maybe I don't want to do it, but that's the one that would be best for me to do. Think about that and then work through those thoughts about, allowing yourself to want to do that decision if it's the one that you're leaning towards as being the right one for you. And remember, it's always your choice, right? You're responsible for the decisions you're making. It's your choice. And when you get to choose, instead of I have to, I need to, I must, when you choose, then that takes the pressure off a little bit. You get to make a choice about what you're going to do for your life. And then I want to talk about liking your decisions. So when you go through that process of making a decision, then you have reasons why you made the decision you made. So the important thing is to like the decision you made. Now, don't immediately change your mind and go, I should have actually done this one or this one. That is just you trying to keep yourself safe and not going into actually taking the action that you wanted to do to get the result that you're looking for. So don't do the immediately change your mind. If you choose to do something else later, that's not changing your mind. But again, that should be after that whole process of I went after it and it wasn't the right one for me. So then I'm going to try this one instead. It shouldn't be an immediate, it was the wrong one, right? Make your decision and decide that that's the right decision for you and like it. Remember to look at your decision in that way, right? Look at your decision as it was the best one that I made at the time, and it's the right one for me right now. And then go after it to see then if it's something else that you need to do. Make sure you're good with your rationalization. Make sure you're good with your gut, your intuition saying, yes, that's the one for me. That's the decision that I want to go after. Because if you're wavering on that, then you're not going to go and do the actions towards the decision you made, right? So you want to make sure that you have good rationalization for why you chose that decision, that you're telling yourself that you like the decision, and it's best to say that out loud, and that you also are in agreement with your rationale for why it's the best decision for you. Okay. And I think that is the main point. So let's kind of go over it again. Many reasons why we're indecisive. One of the ones that comes up the most is we're afraid of making a mistake, right? And again, you don't have to be afraid of a mistake. You make the decision, you learn from the decision, and you move forward, right? Failure, people call it failure. Failure is fine because failure helps you to move forward. Next thing we talked about things to consider and make a decision, such as pros and cons list or a risks and rewards list, opening up to all possibilities. If none of the possibilities you have feel like they're ones you want to go after, whether or not the decision will meet your values and your goals, to make sure you give yourself time. But if you've been giving yourself lots of time, then set a deadline. Listen to your gut, your intuition, and ensure that you like your decision by understanding your rationale, why you chose it, and that you're making the best decision you can at the time. Have a beautiful, wonderful day.